getting earlier and earlier with these live shows. Another Monday night. Everybody survived the K. Drake war over the weekend. Everybody's in one piece, I would assume. Just making sure, man, because that was epic. We should have more like battle raps on Twitter that getting the very personal details of everybody's lives. But y'all don't want to hear about that. Um, on the Monday night. I'm Kendrick. That's Chris and Jared Hoffman. After not appearing last week, he is back tonight to give his hot takes on all things Black college sports. Before we get started, please subscribe and like our YouTube channel. Follow us on Facebook. We're on Twitter, X, and we're on TikTok. Don't forget to read all our stuff on our website, as you see scrolling the bottom of your screen. If you want to donate, also do that through the website as well. So, fellas, a very busy weekend and last week. A lot of stuff going on. We're gonna get into Jackson State hired a basketball coach for women's side. FAMU got a bag dropped on it, and I want to talk a little bit about something that I kind of saw on social media that kind of disturbs me a little bit about an outgoing JSU coach. But we'll get in that a little bit later. First, we're gonna start with Jackson State officially naming Margaret Richards the next head coach of the women's basketball team. She had her official press conference today that Chris Stevens wrote about. She comes over from Alabama A&M. After spent 8 years there, we thought like she was after she left Alabama A&M that she was gonna move on to the wilderness, but no, she pops up at JSU, replacing Tamika Reed. To the surprise of many, to the angry of some, and to the light of many others. So, fellas, before we get into the takeaways from the press conference today, what are you guys' thoughts on Margaret Richards being the next JSU head coach, starting with Chris?
In this world of athletics, especially with the transfer portal, NIL, all this other good stuff, you got to act decisively and you got to act quickly. And Ashley Robinson, Jackson State's AD, moved quickly once he realized that the $250,000 per year contract was not going to be enough for Tamika Reed. He focused his attention on finding another coach. And Margaret Richards had just left Alabama A&M. She was originally going to be an assistant coach at Mercer University in Macon, Georgia. And apparently, Coach Robinson said, "Why don't you come on over here and get yourself back in the swag?" And you can't turn down Jackson State. Not as much success as that program has had over the last 7 or 8 years under Tamika. They deserve a ton. Ashley Robinson deserves a ton of credit for striking while the iron is hot, because he could have waited. He could have tried to do this exhaustive search where he picks like a PWI assistant that's not familiar or an untested HBCU assistant. Nope, he went and got someone who is well versed in all levels of women's college basketball. Of course, Margaret Richards, he coached Alabama A&M for 8 years. She was actually the last coach to lead St. Augustine's to a women's CIAA South title way back in 2010. So she's been around, and she knows HBCU basketball at all levels. So now Jackson State has a chance to continue that level of success now that Tamika Reed has moved on to Charlotte.
Yeah, so Jared, your thoughts? You have been following this job pretty closely, had some very poignant thoughts about what would it mean if JSU were to lose Tamika Reed. What do you think about Margaret Richards stepping in?
Well, I like it. It's somebody, as Chris said, who is familiar with the HBCU landscape. It's someone who has had success in the HBCU landscape, coaching Alabama A&M, coaching St. Augustine's. Although she has not won a conference championship to this point, she has coached teams to over succeed, based on expectation. She had a team that has won 10 SWAC games, 4 of the past 5 seasons, has not had success in the tournament level. I think that's the next step for her in her venture in Jackson State, is having success in the postseason, but in terms of her pedigree, I think she is a very good candidate to lead the Jackson State program forward.
Yeah, join us on the call also today from his car phone, Brandon. Brandon, your thoughts on this? You, like everybody else on the panel, follow women's basketball very closely, and when this announcement was made, she was a coach, like got a lot of wows and ahs and oohs. So, are you in the category that Margaret Richards can continue to keep Jack State on the path of winning, or will this be a transition for her?
I think she can, because, like I said, in Coach Richards, seeing is her track record that she's had, you've got a known commodity, so at worst you're going to at least be fielding competitive basketball teams. And like Jared has said, she's already familiar with the intricacies of being in the SWAC. So there's nothing, there's nothing that she's going to see that's going to be foreign to her, but she's still going to be able to go into those same recruiting paths. And now when she goes into a young lady's living room, or whatever, she's coming in with the cachet of being Jackson State's head coach. So I think this was, um, considering everything, a fine hire by Ashley Robinson, and I guess he really must have made her an offer she couldn't refuse. So that Mercer thing, she had to kind of pump the brakes on that.
Yeah, to turn down a job like Mercer to go to Jackson State is a pretty significant get for Ashley Robinson, who we know has had great success hiring coaches. You know, starting with Tamika Reed, starting with Deion Sanders, getting Mo Williams to come from Alabama State to Jackson State. He's done a phenomenal job of hiring coaches. Chris, you got an opportunity to watch the press conference and write about it. What were some of your takeaways from the things that Margaret Richards said about like her vision for the program and where she wanted to take it?
She said that, first of all, offensively, they want to be a team that's structured but still very much up tempo. And defensively, she preached that, switching from zone to man would be key. So it seems like she's not going to deviate too far from the Tamika Reed game plan, which is probably the SWAC game plan overall, because the SWAC has always been known across all sports as a high scoring conference, whether it's football, baseball, soccer. You're going to see some scores that you normally wouldn't see at the Division I level, and that includes basketball as well. Overall, she said one thing that I found to be very important that she made note of was that she wanted to, quote unquote, take care of home. And that meant that she was probably going to be making a play for a lot of the top recruits in Mississippi, which doesn't sound like a lot to the outsider, but Mississippi women's basketball and girls basketball has, sired some talent over the years. And if Margaret Richards can do what Tamika Reed has done, kind of replicate that and probably build on that and keep a lot of, Mississippi kids home, then that would be a great thing for that program. Overall, felt like the vibe was one of joy in that press conference. Like literally, they serenaded her with the Go JSU chant, and she just had like the biggest smile on her face, because you had a feeling that, she didn't, I don't know if she knew that. I mean, I'm not gonna, cast any aspersions on Alabama A&M bringing in Coach Thornton. I don't know if they wanted hipped Coach Richards to the fact she's like, all right, let me get on out of here. But it seems like Jackson State is a place absolutely where she wants to be. And who wouldn't want to be at Jackson State? They've had so much success on the women's side in the past few years. They're one of these signature Black college sports programs, regardless of sport. So I mean, you're going to get the support, you're going to get the love, and you're probably also going to get some some pushback from time to time, but it's going to be constructive criticism. Yeah, it seems like that Coach Richards very much enjoyed being there. The Jackson State family enjoyed having her there. And the quote that I took from that press conference, I put it at the end of my story, and it's something I'm probably going to put on my wall at some point, because it's probably one of the greatest quotes I've ever heard. Don't be afraid to start over. You're not starting over from the beginning. You're starting over again from experience. And that's something that's a life lesson. Like so many things we do in life, people are just like, all right, I don't know if this is going to work or not. I know I've never done this before. And then you look back on your life and say, well, yeah, I've been down this road before. So now I know what mistakes I can make, what mistakes I can't make, what I can do better, what I can improve upon. And now that she has the backing, because, I mean, granted, Alabama A&M is starting to make moves now under Dr. Paul Bryant. But Jackson State's been making moves. And now that Coach Richards is going to have all the backing up front, that this is literally her chance to put her signature stamp on a program that has been great and can remain great, now that they're going to put the resources behind her to succeed.
Yeah, so like the obvious question, coming out of that is, even though Margaret Richards seems to be a quality head coach, can she continue to keep Jackson State women's basketball on top I mean, the standards have been set by Tamika Reed with all the SWAC championships, with the NCAA tournament appearances, with the players going to the WNBA. Jared, you think the Tigers can keep this ball rolling, or will they have to go through some growing pains with a new head coach?
Well, I think, you know, Coach Reed is in a class of her own when it comes to recruiting. So I don't think that this is a thing where we have to compare what Coach Richards does to what Coach Reed does. I believe that she will have that success when it comes to recruiting because remember, she has had some recruiting wins herself, did Coach Richards. You know, she brought in Dariana Lewis from Missouri State, and she went on to be a three-time All SWAC player and went on to transfer to Syracuse and has had now success overseas. You know, she brought in Kayla Turner, who won the SWAC Rookie of the Year award this past year, you know, and has now unfortunately moved on from the HBCU landscape, transferring to Temple. You know, she brought in Amaya Simmons last year, who was her team's leading scorer. You know, so I think she has that ability to bring in some top tier recruits to Jackson State as well. It may not be on par with Coach Reed, but there's not a lot of coaches in women's basketball outside of Don Staley and begrudgingly Kim Mulkey that can bring in those top tier recruits. Now, to your question of can she continue the success that Jackson State has had? Yes, she can. Because I think now the SWAC is much more wide open than it has been. Jackson State may take a slight step back, but they could still be the leader of the clubhouse. But I think there's a couple of teams that could potentially be in that mix. Like I believe that Alabama A&M will potentially still be in that mix with Coach Thornton there. You know, Florida A&M took a couple of steps up, and I think they could potentially be on the road to improving and potentially be in that SWAC picture as well. So I think it may not be as easy as it looked in past years, but I definitely believe that she can continue the path of success that Jackson State has been on in the past couple of years.
Yeah, Brandon. Some members of the Jackson State community, they do not like this hire at all. They feel like Margaret Richards is not the coach that can continue to lead JSU, as she said, the championships. Um, Talk to me about why you think she is that coach to lead Jackson State championships and how it might not take her very long to do so.
Um, I think. Well, first, let me say I think some of their rancor, if you will, they don't feel it's the splashy or the sexy hire, but as we already have touched on early in the show, she's already kind of shown that she can be competitive within the Southwestern Athletic Conference, and considering that there was not a mass exodus out of the program after Coach Reed left, she's still got some things in place to work with. And as Jared already said, she has shown the ability to be able to bring in high end talent. And so combine that with the JSU machine that's already in place. I don't think, and again, I'm agreeing with Jared. I don't think one there's going to be that big of a drop off. Like when and he's already so eloquently said it. They still have the building blocks in place to still sit atop the mountain. Now, will they go 18-0 through the conference? Probably not. There's been some teams that are obviously taking steps in the right direction, but I think in Coach Richards, you've got a quality coach there um, in place. You could certainly have done a lot worse than a Margaret Richards, and I think given the time to put her to start to put her imprint and the stamp on the program, I think that the J State fan base will be happy with what come, or they will be happy what can come out of their women's basketball program.
Yeah, Chris, you know that the SWAC has been dominated by JSU, and now Tamika Reed is gone. You think Jackson State might be vulnerable, or based on what Brandon said, it hadn't been a lot of mass exodus from the program. You think they'll still be able to keep the momentum going and still, be the favorite going into the next season to win on the SWAC championship? You on mute, my brother.
I got
That's
caught
one.
on mute this time.
That's one for the show.
We get one every show, ladies and gentlemen. We're sorry. Yeah. Well, they're not going to look like the 96, 98 Bulls the last 3 years as they've done, through the during the Tamika Reed era, but they'll still be successful. But we do have to, as Jared said, Alabama A&M is on the come up. Florida A&M is probably going to be a team to watch next year. We can't forget Grambling. Courtney Simmons had them went in 20 games for the first time in God knows how long. So the SWAC women's picture is actually going to be very, very interesting in 2024-25. I'm not ready to knock Jackson State off the mountain just yet because they still have a lot of returning pieces, and Coach Richards knows her way around the SWAC just like every other coach that's still remaining. So, yeah, Tamika Reed is a huge loss. Don't get me wrong. I mean, she did so much for the SWAC, for Jackson State, for the HBCU landscape, but Margaret Richards is another coach who's been around the block. She knows the SWAC. She knows the region. She knows basketball. And that, to me, is a recipe for success. So I don't think Jackson State probably is going to make it look as easy as they have in the last few years, but they'll still be at the top of the mountain for at least this year, I feel like.
Yeah, people are talking about the job that Don Thornton has done at Alabama A&M on the recruiting trail already as a possible challenger at that state. We know Southern is always going to be there in the SWAC to challenge that state as well. So, like I said, Chris, it won't be particularly easy for Jackson State to win on the SWAC championship, even if Tamika Reed had stuck around. But I think we might see a little bit more hope from the rest of the SWAC contingent because the top dog is out of there right now and is being replaced by somebody that hadn't really had the same level of success that predecessor had. And speaking of her predecessor, moving right along, as we all know, Tamika Reed took the job at Charlotte, the second best city in America. Shameless plug for me. To be their head coach. And universally, it was renowned. People were happy for her. She even got congratulations from Gino Orienema and Don Staley praising the move. But as you know, fellas, social media can be a very, very evil and grimy place. And there were some people on social media who thought that Tamika Reed and her name should be disparaged in the same way as another former Jackson State coach did on his way out. And so after Tamika Reed was hired, you see her there with her jersey, the presentation of her arrival in Charlotte. You had a couple of Twitter accounts. There were far more than that. There's those two. But they were adamant and called out HBCU Twitter and the media for not giving Tamika Reed a very hard time for leaving Jackson State and going to the PWI like Deion Sanders did, leaving that state going to Colorado. I will read a couple of those tweets for people who cannot see us right now. The Twitter handle Coach Dancy's Fade Burner account. Well, it's a long name. Where is the collective outrage over this? And then there's another one, the Young Index. Ironically enough, they both associate with Colorado. Dead giveaway, as someone once said. Dead giveaway. All them Jackson folks and the media ain't gonna bash them how they did Prime, though. Now, Chris Stevens, I see your face. You look very upset about this. Why is Coach Dancy's Fade Burr account and my man DJ Young Index totally off base here?
If you put either one of those two Twitter followers' brains inside of a pig, it would move. Just dumb. D-U-M-B dumb. Like, let's be clear about this. Tamika Reed, yes, it hurts that she's leaving Jackson State, but she did everything she could at that program. And yes, people are gonna look at the contract that they offered her. 4 years, $250 million. That adds up to $1 million. I hate math, but I think I'm correct in that regard. And yeah, I mean, when you outgrow $1 million contract, that's life. I mean, she was one of the hottest names on the coaching circuit. Like, for crying out loud, she interviewed at Tennessee. The same Tennessee that gave the world Pat Summitt, Candace Parker, Tamika Catchings, Isabel Harrison, Rickea Jackson. Like, Tamika Reed was a hot name. And it wasn't like, and one thing about Tamika Reed that I liked about her was that she didn't buy into the foolishness. Because remember, she got into a war of words with another one of these brain dead Twitter users when that 60 Minutes fluff piece on Coach Prime aired, and they were just like, and Tamika Reed's like, y'all are doing the city of Jackson, a disservice. Like, she stepped up for the city. So no, she's not like Deion Sanders. And you'll never catch Tamika Reed or her kids on Twitter disparaging other athletes. Did we forget about that? Did we forget about that? Didn't we just watch Deion Sanders and his son, who literally is looking like Eli Manning with a tan right now without petulant acting, doing all of this foolishness on social media? So no, Tamika Reed does not deserve the same scoring as Deion Sanders does. Oh my God. Once again, George Bush is going to pay for No Child Left Behind. I swear to God. I'm telling y'all, man. Because a lot of people are just out here operating, like, put it like this. You got a car, if you've ever driven a stick before, you know when you miss a gear. There are so many people with 5-speed transmissions only operating in third gear and can't get the fourth. Just dumb to be dumb. So no, Tamika Reed does not deserve the same score as Deion Sanders. I want y'all to get a life and a reading comprehension class, because right now y'all just out here looking real stupid.
Jared, how do you follow that up?
I can't follow it by saying much different. The one thing I will say is this. Look, Deion has a fan base that goes hard for him, and for good reason. He is an all-time great athlete. He is a great personality, and for what we want to say about him, he is somebody that knows how to get people's attention. You know what I mean? But just for a couple of reasons why this is so off base, correct me if I'm wrong, guys. Did Tamika Reed spend only 2 seasons at Jackson State and then bounce?
Nope.
So she was there what 3 years? No, it was 4 years. No, it was 7 years. She was there 7 years. She led them to what? I don't think she ever won a SWAC championship, did she? Oh, she did win a SWAC championship. So it was it 2 SWAC championships? No, that can't. It's 3 SWAC championships. She won 3. She went to 3 NCAA tournaments. You know how many coaches have done that since she did it? None. Ain't there's no coach that has been to 3 NCAA tournaments in the time that she has done it. But I guess you would say, oh, she didn't have any winning seasons when she was doing that. Oh, what? You mean she had 2 seasons in which she would finish 18-0 in conference? You mean she was 83-4 in the past 5 seasons in conference play? What? Get the heck out of here. Well, I mean, but at least she didn't have any players get selected to the WNBA draft when it hadn't been done in 20 years. Oh, you mean that she actually had a player get selected to the WNBA draft? What? Wait, hold on a second. She had 2 of them. What? Get the heck out of here. Man, cut it out. Get out of here. Stop it, people. Stop it. Tamika served her time at Jackson State. She maxed out. There was not much more she could have done except win an NCAA tournament game. She did not come to Jackson State and sell a dream. She didn't come to Jackson State saying, God led me here. She didn't come to Jackson State spitting a bunch of hyperbole and making people believe something was going to happen that didn't. She maxed out. She did more at Jackson State. And thank you, Chris Silas. She finished her contract. That's also, so she didn't leave. She finished her contract and found an offer elsewhere that served her better, and her at this stage in her coaching career. So no, this is not the same thing as Dion. Let me make this very, very clear. Does Deion Sanders get a lot of flack that does not deserve? Yes, he absolutely does. All of that calling him a sellout and stuff like that, I don't agree with that. And he got a lot of hate upon leaving Jackson State and going to Colorado that he probably did not deserve. However, do not let Deion's celebrity status start to make you feel like everyone should get treated as he does, because that's unrealistic and it's off base because the two situations are completely different. I know that I didn't talk a lot. I know that was a short, explanation. I'm joking. I talked forever, but that it's just a stupid thing to say. It's just stupid.
Yeah, that was good stuff, Jared. Brandon, we've all been privy to these comments, especially when Dion left, and then when Willie Simmons left for Duke. Some of the same sentiments were said, like, "How come nobody's mad Willie Simmons is going to Duke to be the running backs coach?" It's like they're trying to replicate something that does not exist, and not understand there's context to these things, as Jared so eloquently laid out there. But Brandon, why do you think that people like the one I display here in the tweets here should kind of get a brain and learn, like there's context to these things?
It's very difficult to try to understand and rationalize the thoughts and actions of the irrational. Um, so it's really tough to say because I understand at a certain level. Okay, you might want to be upset because you've had one of the most successful runs um, through the SWAC in recent memory, in recent history, and the architect behind that has left your program, and so I get it. There's that fear that you're going to fall back to mediocrity or even worse. I get that part, but as Mr. Silas has said, it just said in the chat, and Jared has said she finished out her contract. When you look at what she accomplished while she was there, she did an amazing job. There's not much more you could have asked for her, and I don't understand why you're getting upset because she has finished out. She did what she was contractually obligated to do, and then she moved on. She's in a different phase in terms of her coaching career. It's not like she ground her muddy feet on the couch on her way out. She didn't do that. She she left, and she was respectful on the way out, and even still complimentary moving forward. So I don't understand it, in terms of saying that she deserves to be disparaged, which she doesn't. She handled herself with class and in a way you would want a coach who's departing your program to conduct themselves. And besides, they're upset. And if something happened and they could have her back tomorrow, they would take her back and act like they didn't say none of the stuff they said. So they might as well knock it off.
I will say though that the Twitter accounts we're referencing are staunchly in support of Deion Sanders. I don't think these people are Jackson State folks who are saying these things. And why would they? I mean, Tamika Reed, you could make an argument that like the women's basketball team at that state was the most successful team on campus in the time she was there, more so in football and to the two runs to the championship game that Jackson State had, more so in baseball, despite the fact that they had an undefeated season in 2021 in the SWAC. And despite any other sport, the women's basketball team was the standard in the athletic department at Jackson State. And Tamika Reed was a tremendous part of that. So any ill will or bad words toward her is undeserved. These guys are just trolling. I think trying to get a rise out of folks, trying to engagement farm, if you will. But yeah, like Tamika Reed, she does not deserve any smoke. She deserves all the praise for sticking through a contract and winning, and just being an ambassador for the university and for the city in general. Even almost up until she left for Charlotte, she was still actively recruiting. She was telling like transfers like, "Hey, come Jack State. Look at all the players I was able to acquire from Power Five programs that are going to the WNBA." So she was tremendously still invested in the university, despite other coaches who left the university and were had one foot out the door. But story for another day.
Maybe we need to check the IPs on those Twitter's accounts, see if they're not centered in Boulder somewhere. Can't even talk somebody about some burner accounts out there.
Yeah, I know, right? Yeah, like at least like use your like real name or something. You're gonna do that, but hey, it's Twitter. What do you expect? Um, and so for our last topic tonight, we're gonna talk about a program, Florida A&M, that got a bag dropped on it, a significant bag dropped on it to the tune of $237 million. I think it's a record for HBUs in terms of like receiving donation. I think like maybe Morehouse had the record before that, over $100 million a few years ago. But the generous donor that you see in the photograph wearing the mask, his name is Gregory Jeremy. He is the CEO of the hydroponic farming and hemp plastic company based in Texas. And he made this general donation over the weekend at FAMU's spring graduation ceremonies. And it was well received everywhere. Everybody, family was super excited about it. Folks who became privy to this news were so excited as well. But also, just like with the Tamika Reed situation in Jack State, there are also some comments about this being too good to be true. And one of them, from which Kim Rashad forwarded me this article from a writer named Jarrell Blankley uh, from Education Newsflash from his Substack. He questioned whether FAMU had been fooled, because why else would someone give this much money to an HBCU? It can't be real, right? Um, so Gerald wrote a pretty lengthy article on his Substack where he does a pretty good job of trying to lay out why he thinks maybe we should think twice about this donation, whether or not it's legitimate. He goes into writing about, well, we don't know much about the donor. If he's a billionaire, why all of a sudden is he doing this now? He's not a FAMU graduate, no ties to the university whatsoever. Didn't have previous dealing with black colleges before. Um, he did attempt to make donations at Miles College and Coastal Carolina. As far as Coastal Carolina goes, he was slated to donate $95 million. And according to this article, because of pretty much a tax write-off, to offset some, I guess, debt he had. And then like Coastal Carolina and the donor, the deal kind of fell apart and it didn't happen, all because of disputes were in which the donor suggested that there was racism involved. So that deal didn't go through. And also it's written in his background that like we don't know much about him, like we don't know his story. He may not be who he says he is. And so at least from one source, there's been some discord in terms of like just legitimate or not. But fellas, I'm gonna throw it out to the panel. Anybody can answer it if they want to. Should we truly believe that FAMU actually received this amount of money, or should we actually be skeptical that it's actually going to happen?
This is probably the most stressful show I've ever done, and I've only been here a year. And mind you, I love it here. Talking about black college sports and black colleges is, one thing that, has always touched my heart, because I'm a Delaware State alum. This is fun for me, but the stupidity of others makes it difficult sometimes. Now, we literally have just sat through a situation with Florida A&M where the athletic director was called into question for her football coach search. Why would Florida A&M a few months later turn around and put themselves in another precarious position. Nobody's that damn stupid. Like this isn't O.J. Simpson. You know, this isn't blood in the bushes, blood in the grass, blood on the inside of the Bronco, blood on the outside of the Bronco. He did. It's none of this. It is well, granted. People don't under. I mean, granted, no one understands the popularity of hemp because you know it's pretty much you know it comes from the same tree as you know do 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 Mary Jane. So I mean you know people could be kind of suspect about that, but I don't think a dude would just randomly come up and say, "Hey, I got $237 million," and then just don't have $237 million. I mean, yeah, there's some liars out there, but I don't think anybody's going to lie to the tune of damn near $250 million. If he is false flagging, then yes, this is a devastating loss for Florida A&M and a university that can't afford these type of losses. So that's why I probably think that they, you know, did their due diligence and made sure that this guy was on the up and up. So maybe he. I just don't see it. I mean, yeah. I mean, if someone says, you know, he doesn't have any ties to the university. Yes, he tried to donate to other schools before. Maybe Florida A&M just decided that, okay, you know, we're not going to hold whatever suspicions people have against him. We're going to do our own work. And if our own work checks out, then yes, we're going to take the award. I mean, they'd be foolish not to. It doubles their entire endowment. It's double their entire endowment. You tell me what HBCU from Dover, Delaware to Houston, Texas wouldn't take 9 figures. Anybody? Okay then. So I just don't see it. Like, yeah, if this turns out to be a scam, then yes, it is going to be a devastating scam, but I doubt it is.
All right, I got an announcement to make. The boss is here. Everybody, stay calm. The boss is here. Ken Rashad joined the show. He's got things to say, and I'm gonna let him say some things. Ken, take it away, my friend.
See, you just brought me on. Maybe I just wanted to listen from the background. I didn't.
No, man. Like you don't got that giant microphone in front of your face to say nothing. I know you better than that, man. Come on.
All I will say is this: it's bad enough when people don't read, but it's worse when not only people don't read, but then they don't think, and that makes you dumb. I'm gonna just sit up here. I'm not gonna sit up here and profess to know all of the details about this transaction that took place in FAMU, but I have talked to a couple of people offline about this, and the one thing that was pretty consistent in my conversation today with some of these folks is that for whatever reason, and I understand the need to be skeptical, but for whatever reason, it's just something within us that just feels the need to just automatically assume that something isn't right. An article comes out of the blue from somebody who decides he just wants to write. And, you know, I'm not trying to discredit the individual. The person is more than entitled to express his views, you know, but if I have to look at a guy who has a history degree from Howard versus the board of directors at the FAMU Foundation, and I would ask, if you get a chance, go to the link, just do a Google search on the FAMU board of directors foundation, and just look at some of the names on the board. Look at what they do, look at where they work, and you tell me. Now, I'm not saying that it's impossible for any of this to be bogus. I'm not saying that there may not be any validity in what anyone is saying. But all I'm saying is vet what the person who wrote that article, his background, versus the board of directors and their backgrounds. And I'll just leave it at that. I mean, there's nothing to say here, but I'm just saying, man. Damn.
Yeah. So the Tallahassee Democrat wrote an article explaining this donation, and I'm gonna put it on the stage here. What kind of key pieces of the article about it? It says during a news conference after Saturday's commencement ceremony, Vice President for University Advancement and FAMU Foundation Executive Director Shauna Friday Stroud told the Tallahassee Democrat that Jeremy and the Family Trust have already transferred stocks in the amount of 237,750. Well, the amount more than 237,000 to the FAMU Foundation's account, and the university holds certificates for those stocks. That means it's been vetted and it's real. If the school is making that statement, it doesn't signal that something is wrong or something is out of place or this is not real. The school, because when you get a donation that big, of course you're going to check it out to see if it's legitimate. Like,
Absolutely right.
yeah,
But again, I would ask anyone, when you get a chance, Google the members of the FAMU board, directors of the foundation. And I mean, like I said, if for whatever reason this turns out that it's all a scam and whatever the case may be, so be it. But there's absolutely nothing to suggest that this isn't on the up and up. I understand they went back and took a look at what happened with Coastal Carolina. And look, all I will say is this. From what I understand, and again, I'm not going to sit up here and try to give anyone the impression that I've got experience, but from what I understand, things like this happens. When you got someone who's got money and they tell you that they want it applied to a particular area, and for whatever reason it doesn't go right, sometimes it just doesn't go through. And all I will say is this: are we to assume that those folks at Coastal Carolina, because for whatever reason, some of us feel the need that we have to make comparables. There was something about this guy that made the folks at Coastal Carolina want to rock with him until it didn't go right. But then I go back, and to my original point, go back and look at the names of the people who are on the FAMU board of directors at the Florida A&M University Foundation. That's all I'm gonna say. But it's just it's disheartening, man. It is. Let's see. People talking about, I hope the check clears, and I hope they get the money. Well, they've already had the money. Now, people get into the weeds whether or not the stocks are going to, are they going to really get the cash value of it, whatever the case may be. Well, that remains to be seen. But the fact of the matter is that the transaction has been complete. And you look at those members on the FAMU board of directors for the foundation, attorneys, people who are in charge of financial instruments, people who are involved with capital billion-dollar projects, hedge funds, and things of that. I'm pretty certain someone on there has a clue of how this stuff works. I'm pretty certain. So I guess I'm gonna end it by saying this, because we've seen this before. You guys know on social media, we'll post stories out there, and folks will only read the headlines and think they know the entire story because they don't read. But it appears now you guys read this article that, to be quite honest with you, is the opinion of one person or the suspicions of one person who, I don't know the individual, but from what I could tell, really isn't necessarily equipped to question whether or not the FAMU board of directors of that foundation, who really isn't qualified to suggest whether or not they made a mistake or not. But it's one thing for you guys, they won't read, but now it's gotten to the point where some of you just don't think. And that makes you stupid. And if you are offended by it, you know what? God damn it, I don't care. Stop being stupid. Take it off from me, Kendrick. I'm good. I'm good.
Okay. Yeah, Brandon, let me ask you this question. based on some of the things that have happened at FAMU administratively the last couple of years, with what we saw go down with the football coach hiring situation, what we saw go down with how President Robinson ended up getting his job, and all the things that went down there with Courtney Gaucher's situation that happened with him before he left elsewhere. Is it fair to say the people associated with FAMU or familiar with the university have a right to be skeptical about this, or are folks just doing too much?
Is that question addressed to me or
No, Brandon.
oh?
I think it's kind of closer to the latter. I think you have, unfortunately, among some of us, we wish for the worst when it happens to our community, because the gentleman who wrote this thing, I'm pretty sure he didn't write some piece when the Coastal Carolina deal fell through. So it seems a little, I don't want to say disingenuous, but there's just unfortunately that segment that if something happens, they're looking that for whatever reason they don't think that when it comes to us and our people in doing business, that it's got to be something that's janky or shisty when it comes to doing business, unfortunately. And whatever issues that FAMU has had aside from that, in my estimation, my opinion, they don't really have anything to do with this. Um, in terms of this particular deal, those are the two separate things. So, and and
Absolutely.
and and like the boss has so eloquently put it, if by some reason, then for whatever reason it falls through, then at that point we can address it. But as it currently stands, this brother decided, that I want to do something for Florida A&M University, their students now and generations to come. And whether you have, a complete dossier on it,
Okay, well, he's frozen. Let me just address that point, Kendrick. I guess ultimately is this, okay? Based upon the things that we've heard in the past about FAMU, good or bad or indifferent, all I will say is this: that let's not confuse mistakes that may have been made by employees at Florida A&M. People who are actually employed by the university versus those and the responsibilities of the foundation. Because from what if I'm not mistaken, and I think this even extends to the board of trustees, they're not necessarily able to tell those individuals, with respect to operations, they're not able to tell them how to run the school per se. They govern. The foundation is all about raising money, but if you want to group, the name, the commonality is FAMU, but let's not mistake the mistakes that we may have heard about or misfortunes that may have happened with employees, hirings and firings with the institution as opposed to individuals and how they work with the foundation. And I think that's where everything is kind of getting convoluted. But nothing has happened yet. We don't know anything. We think we know about the individual who gave money, but it appears that the money isn't necessarily coming from the individual's company. It's coming from a family trust, which happens to be a private entity. And again, I want to be careful. I'm going to stop there because I'm not going to sit up here and tell you that I know all of these details, because I don't. But if I'm going to rely upon someone's expertise as to whether or not this deal is valid or not, it sure as hell isn't going to be from someone who got who isn't necessarily involved currently in financial instruments and has a history degree from Howard versus board members who are currently working in firms that are venture capital firms and multi-billion-dollar banks and so forth. It's a scale. Again, folks. Stop being stupid.
You know what? The more I think about it, the more I think this dude is upset about the Celebration Bowl still. That might be what it is. He's still mad at Dr. Robinson, Tiffany Dawn Sykes, Willie Simmons, and them folks holding up that trophy in Atlanta. The more I think about it, the more he thought that Howard should have won the Celebration Bowl because he tried to make sense of it as eloquently as he could. He did a damn good job, but right now it just seems like, man, if you don't get your butt out of Atlanta and work, that was December of 2023. We're in May of 2024. Get over the Celebration Bowl, buddy. That's what it sounds like to me.
Oh man. Oh.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
I was gonna say, like, just reading the article. This guy he makes the claim that we should be skeptical because this guy, what year was this? I'm trying to read from. Okay, yeah, like Jeremy the donor. He says served prison time for an assault charge in 2022 and has an outstanding $1,500 judgment against him. They apparently hasn't paid yet. Then he says he has $237 million for FAMU but can't pay $1,500 for a judgment. And then he goes on to say about how the corporation he's associated with has no contracts in the state of Texas or with the federal government, or how there are no profiles of the family trust or on any nonprofit database with the IRS or the comptroller of Texas. So he's pretty much saying, like, how can this man be so invested in FAMU, but doesn't do anything in Texas, and he has a legal case hanging over him that he hasn't taken care of yet financially. But again, as Ken laid out, like, when you get a donation of that size, people into the school are going to do their due diligence. They're going to look into your background. They're going to make sure it's legitimate, make sure it's real. If it's not real at the end of the day, okay, there's going to be a lot of egg on people's faces. But I don't think, like Ken said, like, people are going to go into an agreement like this without having some type of guarantees or some type of agreements that, hey, like, this is going to happen. So, Jared, I'll let you have the last word on this one.
Okay, couple things. One, I just looked up the FAMU Foundation Board of Directors, and as many people who have investment in their titles, if they got scammed, they need to get whatever certificates or degrees they got in finance taken away from them, because it's too many of them. One of them is the CFO and Vice President of Finance and Administration with Florida A&M. So there's too many people with finance in their titles to have gotten scammed by some guy who, I don't know. That's one. Two, if this guy is a scammer, he's not a very smart one. Because what scammer do you know would publicly allow his face to be shown? And I understand the hide in plain sight thing. I understand that. But sir, you are doing this to a university on a national level. I can't imagine that someone would be that stupid to the point of him fighting legal cases and him having outstanding debts. I ain't saying no names, but I also know somebody who is crazy, filthy rich, who has had debt and is fighting legal cases. I ain't gonna say his name, but his name rhymes with Donald Trump. So
he's running for president, they said.
So I don't know why that point would matter to me. Now, in terms of, like, is it warranted for people to be skeptical? I think when you first hear it, yes. Because when I first saw it, I thought it was 235,000 or 237,000. Come to find out it was 237 million. So I was like, well, for a quick second, the conspiracy theorist in me was kind of skeptical. But take the university at their word. If they say that they have vetted it, that they have gone through the proper channels to make sure that this is a legitimate donation, then take them at their word. Now, I'm ignorant to stocks and stuff and how it comes to, if the value of the stock will be whatever it is whenever they, all that stuff. I'm ignorant of all that finance stuff. I ain't got no money. I'm broke. But this is an investment that they will either reap the benefits of or will be burned by. So all of your opinions about, oh, this gotta be fake. Can we go into things with a positive mindset? Can we go into things saying, this is, I hope great things for FAMU, that this all works out for them and that they're able to build up their education system and that they're able to, bring in a whole new class of students, and admission is going to spike because of this. And, they're going to be able to offer, a whole new range of athletic and academic scholarships because of this. They're going to be able to, to upgrade their facilities as a result of this. Can we go into things with a positive mindset? Yes, there have been universities that have been burnt by corrupt donors in the past, or, things that just haven't panned out. But let it play out. We can't always have that internet, something's got to be a conspiracy thing. Sometimes people have good intentions, and they use their money to uplift our communities. Let's have a positive mindset that this is one of those cases, and if it turns out that it's not, then deal with that. Then they will deal with that accordingly, and the law will deal with that accordingly. But for now, we have to just look at this as we see it, and with the information that we have, and judge it on what we have now. We can't just afford to speculate, because look at how much egg is going to be on your face when you find out that this is legitimate and that Florida A&M will thrive and flourish as a result of this. But I ain't got enough information to be talking about this.
Don't get me wrong. I understand the need to be skeptical. I get it. We as journalists, I mean, we don't necessarily take everything at face value as well, but we will, at the very least, try to do our due diligence before we decide to go forward with making some sort of a statement or report or commentary or op-ed or opinion. But in this particular instance, I there's really nothing there. And if it is there, there's nothing to indicate that it's there yet. So, I'm just, for, like I said, man, the people that I talked to today, man, and I guess maybe it's just something in our DNA that just automatically conditions us to be doubtful. Skepticism, okay, that's one thing, but doubtful, that's just a completely different animal. And I just think we need to be careful. And unfortunately, the ones who make the most noise, and the ones that make the most noise are the dumbest ones typically in the group, and they want to impress us with their intellect. They're so hell-bent on being profound in thought that they ultimately end up sounding profoundly stupid. So, I'm embarrassed for some of us. Some of us really do believe that we're doing HBCUs a favor by saying some of this stuff. We actually think we're doing us a favor. And in fact, the matter is, you're not helping anyone with this. When we, and I'm gonna just take it a step further, because I'll admit that a lot of us in this space, we have a tendency to be critical of individuals in administrative positions for the choices that they make or don't make, and that's fine. And they will be the first one to admit, yeah, the criticism comes with the territory. But the one thing I do know is this: that for as smart as we think we are in criticizing some of these individuals in the positions that they hold, I guarantee you they still know more about their profession than we do. I guarantee it. They know more about how the business works than we do. But some of us seem to think that we know more than them, and that's where the mistake comes in. So, what was that comment?
I'll bring it back up.
Okay. I can't really see it. I'm kind of far.
Oh yeah,
so.
I can read it to you.
Yeah.
So this person asked, if this turns out right for Florida A&M, will the rest of the HBCUs apply the same strategy and profit, or will the alums and media continue to apply the Tone Talks, Yvette Carnell, and here's the second part of that, pocket watcher strategy of attacking and going after everyone who's willing to help people just because they look like them?
I don't know. I don't know. I really don't know how to answer that. Oh, I don't know about you guys. I mean, feel free to chime in, but I really don't know how to answer that.
I'm curious what they mean about apply the same strategy. What strategy is this person referring to? They said, will the rest, if this turns out right for Florida A&M, will the rest of the HBCUs apply the same strategy and profit? What, I don't understand what strategy they're referring to.
Well, I don't know if, I mean, let's be careful. I mean, what's good for FAMU may not necessarily be good for Bethune-Cookman. The point that I'm trying to make is all HBCUs, this is the mistake I think a lot of us make, that all HBCUs can't and don't operate the same way. It's impossible. Obviously, one may be public, the other one may be private. FAMU is a public HBCU in the state of Florida. Prairie View is a public HBCU in the state of Texas. I'm just simply saying that, legislators, bylaws, guidelines, state laws, all of that applies to those. I get it. We like to group them all in the same, and there may be some commonalities associated with the HBCUs and so forth. But I just think that, we can probably mirror some things that one school is doing, and we've talked about that. But I don't know how to answer that. But other than the fact that we got to be careful not to lump all HBCUs in the same group, because they just simply can't operate the same way for a plethora of reasons.
Yeah, Braden Matthews asked, so why not just give $237 million in cash and not stocks? That's where the concern comes from.
Well, again, man, and I could be way off base because I don't want to sound like I'm an expert. They probably gave $237 million in stocks, because if it is stock, maybe that stock elevates and it could be worth more than $237 million by the time that it's cashed in. It could be, they could cash out and it could be less. I'm just simply saying, I want to be careful, but my from what I've heard about billionaires and folks, the 1%, and I want to be careful because I'm nowhere close to that. I'm down in the 99% percentile. I think billionaires just operate differently. Everything isn't necessarily in the form of cash. Everything isn't, when the donation is made, depending on, we see some of these donations, sometimes it's not necessarily one lump sum. It may be a donation that's made over a period of years. A lot of times we hear about these donations, and sometimes the donation is nothing more than a pledge that in which the gift hasn't been received, but they plan to get it at some point. But in this particular instance, they've got the money, or they've got the stocks, or they've got whatever gift was promised to them. Now, how they deal with it going forward remains to be seen. But, I don't know of a whole lot of people who can just set up. Well, again, obviously, there's not a whole lot of people who can just simply say, "I got $237 million to just give you." You know, I like I said, man, I want to be careful not to go too deep in the woods because you know everybody doesn't have a trust fund like Kendrick. You know, I'm just saying, man.
There you go, lying again, man. On
I
national
just have a
YouTube.
question. I have a question that may not be as well thought out as Ken's, but who do you know has $237 million cash? That's all I got. Because I mean, Ken said the billionaires do things differently. I don't think anybody's just gonna run around with just like, okay, all right, yeah, I got, you know, I mean, I'm just gonna literally back up the truck and drop it at the center of at the 50-yard line of Bragg Stadium and say, y'all pick this amongst yourselves. I don't think that's how it works.
Right. You know, so I can only dream. You know, I watched the show Billions. Remember the show Billions comes on Showtime?
Mm-hmm.
I watch it. I know how they navigate.
Listen, I mean, I don't know. I mean, I might be the only wrestling fan on the show here, but I'm old enough to remember the $1 Million Man, Ted DiBiase, how he would, you know, after he beat his opponents, he would take out Virgil, the valet that just passed away, his manager Virgil, would hand him over like $100 bill, and he would stuff the $100 bill down his opponent's throat after he'd been knocked out, and the match was over. So I don't know if anybody thinks that Ted DiBiase, you know, that this darn just has, you know, Ted DiBiase type money where it's just like, okay, you know, here. I don't think that's how it works.
Okay, so I want to address this the comment that we have on the screen. It says you can leverage your options based on strategy versus getting the money up front. Once the money is gone, it's gone. But with stocks, you have options. Okay, so if that's what you mean about if other HBCUs could take that strategy or going forward, if this works out for Florida A&M, I'm gonna defer to what Ken said and say that all situations are created equal, you know, because Morgan State or Norfolk State or Bethune-Cookman or any other HBCU can get a donation just like this, $237 million in stocks, and it ended up turning out to be 60,000. You know what I mean? I don't know. I'm ignorant to stuff like stocks and the investment stuff like bonds and Bitcoin and all this type of stuff. But you could easily get burnt in things like that. Like that, if that's one thing I do know about investments and stuff like that, is that not everybody has made it out in the green. So I think that would other HBCUs consider taking that route? Maybe, but they would have to be cautious because it doesn't work out for everybody the same.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure with how public this donation has been and just the historic nature of it, it's definitely going to continue to be under a microscope. And whatever news breaks from this, we'll definitely follow it and keep y'all updated. But I think it was good commentary all the way around, especially from Ken from educating us, because he is the true boss. He has way more money than I do.
Stop. Okay.
Anybody on this panel.
Okay. It's time for the show to end. Stop. I'm not going to let you lie to these folks. I will look, you know what? But let's end the show on this. On Wednesday, folks, I guess I'll do this live. I don't know what time on Wednesday, but on Wednesday, I am going to make a very special announcement. I don't want to necessarily pump it up too much, but I think it's safe to say it's big. And we're going to announce that on Wednesday, probably sometime during the day. But it's big. I think so. All right, Kendrick, you can push the end button.
Hit the like button, please. The like button, yeah, not the end button. The like button, yeah. That's at the top of the show.
But I'm just saying, hit the like button, folks, and subscribe to the channel.
Like button, subscribe. Ken posting TikToks at a rapid pace.
It's been a while. Okay, so
I've been teasing you with the TikToks this whole time. You say it's been a while. Okay,
I know.
Yeah, we got it. Ken Rashad is going to get back to doing TikToks when he's not trying to give financial advice to universities. How about we do that?
Oh my God. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, but that's gonna do it for us tonight. Thanks for Chris, Jared Hoffman, Brandon King from his car. Say hi to your son for us. And Ken Rashad. We will see you guys next week. Thanks for joining us.